Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How are you guys doing? Welcome to our second session. Alright. This session is super important. And before I tell you the topic of this session, let me set this stage for you. So how many of you have you heard of Imam Malik before? I hope everybody here, because he's one of the greatest names in Islamic history. When Imam Malik was 7 years old, and we don't have a 7-year-old student in our class, his mom dressed him up to take him to the class for the very first day. Kind of like Rayyan just joined the class, right? Alhamdulillah, he came dressed the very first day. Imam Malik's mom put a turban, make sure he took a nice shower, he's wearing a nice attar, sends him to class. Who's the teacher? Rabi'atul Ra'i, who is not somebody who teaches children. He teaches high-level stuff. So Imam Malik, who's 7 years old, can't really understand everything that he's going to learn. And she gives him a beautiful advice. And that sets the stage for what we're talking about today. She says, my son, before you learn his knowledge, learn his manners. Learn his manners. So, Imam Dhahabi, he says that the Imam Malik had a student named Imam Shafi. Follow me, people. Imam Shafi had a student named Imam Ahmad. Imam Ahmad was the greatest Imam of his time. His funeral was attended by 1 million people, which is close to the number of ahadith he has memorized. 1 million ahadith? That is no joke. We're having a hard time memorizing 3 lines, mashallah. And that's giving us a brain freeze. And then we can't keep our 10 criticals straight. Imam Ahmad, 1 million ahadith. He is the Imam of his time. You know how many people were in his halaqah? We got 15 people here, 20 people here. 5,000 people in his halaqah. Now, check this out. In that halaqah, how many people are actually taking notes and writing? Only 500 people. Do you know what the rest of the people were doing? They were observing his manners, learning from his personality. They were learning his etiquettes. Because if you don't have etiquettes, bro, and you think you're just going to be a tape recorder of Qur'an, eventually your personality will catch up with it, and you're going to either drop out of the class, or something terrible will happen. You're like, you know what, I quit. I can't do this anymore. So your personality and your etiquettes have to be in line with you learning knowledge. That's why I'm telling you the names of the first 3 generations. One of the greatest scholars from the first 3 generations, his name was Abdullah ibn Mubarak. Abdullah ibn Mubarak says, in our time, people would learn knowledge and manners at the same time. Because you know what happens in our time? A Desi parents will come like, please teach my son how to read Quran and write. Please. And that's all legit, mashallah, it's beautiful. Except the guy learns Quran for 3 years, and you know what has he learned? What he has not learned? He hasn't learned manners. He hasn't learned how to eat properly. He hasn't learned the manners of drinking. He hasn't learned, wallahi, I know students in our class. When you take them out to like Anmol or something, they are so greedy as if they want to order the whole menu in front of everybody. That kind of, for example, gluttony. That's just a restaurant example. I've heard example, just yesterday I heard a complaint. When you don't learn manners, that's what happens, that one of our students, I don't know, sneaked into Sheikh Ziyad's gathering, the Arabic jalsas that he does. Knocked out the coffee and tissues and, milk and stuff. And it's like, Brother Amir, please talk to your student. And another thing, we hear sometimes when the class is over and our students are out on the street, as if like there's a gang get-together. It's so loud that wallahi the neighbors are going to call the police. What's happening here? You're memorizing 10 juz, 15 juz, but you don't know one line when it comes to the book of manners. And that's a serious problem. You guys follow me? Sufyan al-Thawri, how many we have heard his name? Sufyan al-Thawri was known as the Amirul Mu'mineen of this ummah when it comes to hadith. What does Amirul Mu'mineen means, gentlemen? You're learning Quran in Arabic, you should know what Amirul Mu'mineen means.
Leaders of all Muslims.
Leaders of all the believers. In what? In ahadith. What does he say? He said, people in our time, this is going to shock you people. This might zap you. He said, people in our time learn manners and worship for 20 years before they learned the ahadith. Before they started telling, I know Sahih al-Bukhari, I got Hafiz written on my forehead. No, they were learning manners and worship for 20 years. That is serious business, gentlemen. So guys, if you think you're just going to come and memorize 5 juz, and you think, mashallah, you're on the top of the world, and your manners haven't caught up with you, bro? You're not really what we're looking for. Because remember last time we talked about Darul Arqam? You think the Prophet ﷺ was just quizzing people on how many ayats they knew? You think so? Because Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, one of the greatest scholars of Qur'an that came out of Darul Arqam, you know what he said? He said, in our time, people wouldn't memorize 10 verses. How many? 10 verses. He says, in our time, the companions, the students of Darul Arqam, the Darul Arqam, would not memorize 10 verses. Except that they would stop right there and they wouldn't memorize the next 10 verses until the first 10 verses were brought into practice. That's how it works. So Hasan al-Basri, oh, how many heard of Hasan al-Basri? You guys get used to these names because these are amazing heroes and stars of this ummah. These are, well, you read their lives and you compare to the lives of the filthy role models of today and you see the difference between the heaven and the earth. Hasan al-Basri. And you know Hasan al-Basri was strong. Regarding his biceps, it was said that his biceps were like his thighs, you know? Huge biceps. Hasan al-Basri says, in our time, people would come to seek knowledge. He says it would not take long. Except, what would happen? That you would see the effects of that knowledge in the way that person enjoys his prayer. Look what he says. He says, except you see the effects of that knowledge in his prayer getting better. MashaAllah, some of us have listened to lectures of unforgettable moments, a heart serene, yet the last thing in our mind when we pray is Allah. You know? He said the first thing knowledge led to was what? Connection with Allah. And then what did he say? In the way that person interacted with others. In the way he shook his hands. In the way that he walked. In the way he talked. He wasn't breaking hands. He was gently shaking hands. He wasn't stabbing people with the daggers of his tongue. He was brightening their day. So what am I trying to get at, people? As a student of knowledge, we got to learn manners. We got to learn etiquettes of knowledge. Otherwise, opposite of what Darul Arqam is trying to do happens. And that is that you guys, mashallah, know 10 juz, and everybody in the community knows that you know, that Abdullah knows 10 juz from Darul Arqam, or from our class. And what happens? Then that person, the outsider of the community, he thinks, you know what, since he knows 10%, his behavior would be at A level, just like his Quran is at A level. And what happens? We get A level Quran, we get F level or U level behavior, and they come running to us and they say, well, your students aren't really behaving. Because their manners are not learning and seeping into their heart. Now you guys, what we're going to do now is we're going to talk about 5 things, 5 simple things, if you guys can bring it into your manners. Again, don't just memorize them because you've been memorizing plenty. We don't need you to just put another thing in your mental hard drive. Just bring them into practice. 5 things. That's all I'm asking. Can we memorize these 5 things and put them into practice, gentlemen? Do I have a yes? Do I have a nice, enthusiastic yes? I'm not giving you a top 10, ESPN top 10. Just giving you 5. Just put that into practice. All right, number 1. Of the manners of the student of knowledge, that he does not seek knowledge to please anyone but Allah. Number 1 thing, that you do not seek knowledge to please or make happy anyone other than Allah. And what is a sign that you're seeking knowledge just to please Allah? Well, number 1 is that you didn't join this class because your parents dragged you out of your bed to come here. That's the number 1 sign. Second sign, knowledge is not a burden upon you. There are some students in our class, you ask them to memorize 1 line more than what their agenda and summer goal is, and as if the sky fell upon them. If that's your attitude, are you memorizing knowledge to please me? Or to keep me from swallowing you out of anger? If you seek knowledge to please Allah, then knowledge is not a burden for you. Somebody remind me, I gave you an analogy. Blank versus blank last time. Some students take Quran as blank. Some students take Quran as blank. Yes, Tariq.
Some students take Quran as a hobby and some students take Quran as a job.
As a job, that's right. So if you take knowledge as a full-time job and work that you have to do, you have to put 8 to 5 and you can't wait to go home, Now Qur'an is like, you're just doing it because you have to. Because I work, because I got to feed my kids. Well, I don't have yet, but I will in the future, inshallah, when I get married. But Qur'an has to be more than that. You guys understand? Or knowledge in general has to be more than that. What's another sign that you seek knowledge to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? That you make dua to Allah to increase your knowledge. You guys, I'm not going to ask you for raise of hands, but really, just look into your past 5 days. I know I already spoke to some of our newer students about this. When was the last time you made dua? About, Ya Allah, make me a better Muslim. Ya Allah, make me more knowledgeable. If only thing you ask Allah is of the next PS4 that's coming out, and Ya Allah, make me the star shooter in my school, and Ya Allah, give me the varsity spot that I wanted to ever since I saw Michael Jordan play. If that's all your dua is, then I was giving a beautiful example yesterday. Adam a.s. made dua to Allah, and you know what? Iblis eventually made dua to Allah. What did Adam a.s. ask Allah for when he made dua? He said, Ya Allah, if you don't forgive me, and you don't have mercy on me, Ya Allah, I'm screwed. You know what Shaitan asked for? First he didn't make dua, but later when he think he needed Allah, he made dua, and he's like, Ya Allah, give me life till the day of judgment, so I can screw every human being on the face of the earth. So Shaitan asked for something related to this world, only. Adam a.s. asked for something related to this world and the hereafter. So guys, making dua, not just Shaitan made dua only when he needed Allah. You got to make dua all the times. Anyway, of the signs that you seek knowledge only to please Allah is that you make dua to ask Allah to increase your knowledge. And here's another amazing, amazing sign, people, that I hope you're putting into action. Of the signs, or the sign that hopefully is in your characteristic and personality, of the sign that you seek knowledge to please Allah, is that you put that knowledge into action. That's right. Oh, that sounds so beautiful, doesn't it? If you've been memorizing, if you've been listening to tafsir every Saturday 30 minutes, and you are still treating your sister like she's your servant in the house, things haven't really gotten better now. Or if you listen to tafsir every 30 minutes, and you started with Alhamdulillah, where you learn Alhamdulillah means to be grateful to Allah, that all praise and gratefulness belongs to Allah, yet Fajr time comes and you're snoring right through it, what is happening here? We got knowledge, but we got no action. And you know what that means, gentlemen, right? You know what that means? That means that we are not becoming the products of Darul Arqam that our vision is. Because, and I've shared this with you before, Sufyan al-Thawri, when he was young, and he was being sent to school, the mother said, you know, my son, I don't need you to bring home a 4.0 GPA. She didn't ask for that. My son, I don't want an honors certificate plastered on your wall when you come back. That's not what I'm looking for. I'm not looking for a towering trophy when you come home. She said, my son, this is what I'm looking for, she says. She says, if you learn 10 ahadith or 10 ayat, and you don't find yourself increasing in Allah's fear, if you don't find yourself using Facebook in a non-filthy manner, if you don't find yourself making good friends in high school and middle school when Brother Amir is not hovering over your head, then she says, then my son, know that those 10 ahadith, they just screwed you over on the day of judgment, because Allah will bring these 10 hadiths and will say, Abdullah, you knew these 10 hadiths that Mustafa didn't, and your behavior was no different than Mustafa. So what's the first sign of etiquette of the student of knowledge? That he seeks knowledge only to please Allah. And you guys, what that means is that if I take a student and bring him in front of you right now, and I praise the life out of him, if you feel jealousy in your heart, that you know what, I knew 5 juz too, I'm a poor student, I didn't get no respect, then ask yourself, who are you seeking knowledge for, bro? Huh? I had a student who said, Brother Mir, I brought X, Y, and Z to class. I got no compliment. X, Y, and Z got a compliment. What's up with that? I said, are you bringing these things to please me? Or are you bringing them to please Allah? You got to ask yourself. Brother Mir asked 2 of our students who might be leading Tarawih prayer this year. Omar Saleh, maybe Yasin. Let's say another student says, you know what? I happen to know 10 juz. How is Yasin so much better than me? I mean, he's from Somalia after all. And and I'm from Pakistan, or some racist comment. Hmm? So people, who are you seeking knowledge for? Repeat after me. What's the first etiquette of the student of knowledge? That you seek knowledge?
Only to please
Only to
Allah.
please Allah. Oh, that sounds beautiful. What's the second point? Second etiquette of the student of knowledge is that.
Make dua.
Pay attention. Pay attention. Student of knowledge lowers his wings of humility to his teacher. Let's repeat with me. Student of knowledge lowers his wings of humility to his teacher. You're humble to your teacher. You don't talk back. You are quick to admit your mistakes. You don't get a big fat ego because you screwed up. No, you're humble. You can swallow and put a knife on your ego because you know what your teacher has done for you or is doing for you. You guys, this has been an issue in our class. Are you humbling yourself in front of your teacher? Or you're willing to talk back as soon as you get a first opportunity? Let me give you a small example. If you are in okay, first of all, let me give you some example from the first 3 generations, so you guys understand what I mean by humbling yourself in front of the teacher. Imam Shafi'i famously has known to say that my teacher Imam Malik, when I would sit in front of him, I would flip the pages so softly, not like a turret, would flip the pages so softly to make sure that the sound of those pages flipping would not interrupt my teacher. Imam Abu Hanifa says, my teacher's house was a couple blocks from me. I made sure I never extended my legs towards the house of my teacher. Sufyan al-Thawri says that people who would learn knowledge with us, they would come and sit with us, and they would not speak a word for years until they had stood with their teacher, learned from their teachers for what? For decades sometimes. And then they would begin to preach knowledge. Here we are, subhanAllah, sometimes, some of us, not all of us, we learn 2 books, we're like, I'm ready to give khatra over there. Oh, I'm set. I'm Shaykh al-Islam now, you know? Imam Nakhari, Ibrahim ibn Nakhari, was a great scholar. You guys, some of you are not familiar with these names, but these names, if you knew who they were, would give you goosebumps. Imam Nakhari, students would come to him, and he would be sitting on the floor, and they would come at Asr time to seek knowledge from him, and they would stand. He's not asking them to stand, by the way, but out of awe and respect for their teacher, they would stand from Asr till Maghrib seeking knowledge, and they would not sit down. Why? Because Imam Nakhai, let's say, forgot to ask them to sit down. Out of awe and respect, they stood and took knowledge from him. These are the adab of the students of knowledge. This is how they treat their teacher. And how we do, bros? Huh? You know how we do, right? We go to the gym, all right? Your teacher is playing basketball, and your teacher got crossed out and broke his ankles. The whole class erupts with giggles. MashaAllah, you're so humble. You're so respectful. You gotta watch that. You gotta watch that, bro. Are you humbling yourself in front of your teacher? I won't mention the name of a student who got kicked out of this class because of his ego. Because he got called out for something. He didn't have the humility to own up to his mistakes. He quit class, left class, got kicked out of class, got sacked out of class. So you guys, humility and respect is very, very important. Every single one of you, whether it's me, whether it's Hafiz Rahil, whether it's any other class assistant, if you're not showing them your utmost respect, hey, let me ask you this. Let's say let's say we're doing a Qur'an competition, and we're preparing for it, and I read an ayah for you. You know how we were doing the mock Qur'an competition before Masjid al-Khudam, right? Let's say that we have the entire class sitting, and we're testing you guys, and I recite an ayah, and I make a terrible tajweed mistake. Terrible. So terrible that it's enough to cause the entire class to erupt in laughter. And you sit there and make faces, you're like, I learned the rules of Raw when I was rookie stage. Apparently, teacher doesn't know. And there you go with arrogance in your heart as if you're like better than your teacher now, or the assistant teacher now. Is that your attitude? Because you know what Imam Shafi used to make dua? He used to make dua for this. You know what he used to say? He used to say, Ya Allah, hide the faults of my teacher from me. And Ya Allah, do not deprive me from the benefits of his knowledge. Imam Shafi, what dua is he making? Ya Allah, do not show me the faults of my teacher in case I lose respect for him. Here we are, we're looking with a microscope on our eyes for smallest screw up. Brother Mir, I thought you said this. I saw you do this. That leads me to a rule called the U rule in our class. What's a U rule? That I said something, later on I said something else, and you feel like those two statements are opposed to each other. So you want to just jump on your text message and say, Brother Mir, I thought you told me this. That is called a violation of the U rule. Instead, what a beautiful, polite student of knowledge, Sheikh Yasir Birjas taught me this rule, by the way, taught the entire class. What happened is that he gave a class, and in the Q&A section, one student got up and was like, Sheikh, I thought earlier, like an hour ago, you said this. And the Sheikh said, you? He's like, yeah, you said it. You? He's politely trying to say, you're putting yourself in a debating position with your teacher? What is a better way of phrasing it? You say, oh, you guys are, I know you guys are experts, because we went through this just yesterday. What is a better way of phrasing it? That, Brother Mir, earlier I thought I heard this. Brother Mir, I thought I understood that this was the classroom. You put your teacher out of the firing range of your tongue lashing. You know? Or, mashallah, some of our students do this. When they'll send me a text message, Brother Mir, I'm ready for sabah. An hour passed, I didn't respond because I was busy with my boss at work. And they'll say, Brother Mir, I texted, you didn't respond. Hello, Mr. President here, I have a schedule to keep. Instead they say, no one picked up, Brother Mir, politely. So that's the U rule. So anyway, these are some examples. What are the examples of? What's the second rule? Did you guys forget already?
You gotta
lower your wings of humility to your teacher. What's the third rule? These rules are now getting smaller and smaller. The first two rules were really important, and I took a little bit of time on it. Third rule is, a student of knowledge beautifies the class environment. Very, very important, guys. Very, very important. I don't know if you can feel my pain when I say this rule. Because I've seen some heartbreaking things taking place before our eyes within class while the class is going on. Yet the student is completely oblivious to what he's doing. For example, we gather the class together. Hey guys, time to make some announcement. And here Abdullah is carrying on his conversation with Talha. 5 minutes and the teacher is sitting there politely waiting. Please finish. Go ahead, finish. Class environment. You're sitting in the middle queue. Okay, you're ready for the last 15 minutes. And you're passionately talking about the playoffs. And Muhammad next to you is trying to work on his sabah, perfect it. But he keeps getting distracted because he's hearing your commentary on how LeBron did last night. He can't focus because you're too busy criticizing Tim Duncan and how old he is and how he needs to retire. Well, we can't focus because you keep destroying the class environment, bro. Or, what's worse, you talk back in front of everybody to your teacher. Of course, you're crossing the last line out there. But you guys, as a new student, as an older student, what kind of example are you setting in class? Are you the kind of a person, I say, hey bro, why don't you go in the back over there and please practice for the next 10 minutes. And you're like, okay, Brother Mir, I got you. And you go back to the desk and 2 minutes and then there you go again. You're checking out the mountains outside and the faces of every student in class as if your first day in class. Or what are you doing to class environment? Why is class environment important? Need 2-3 hands. Talha.
People from outside will think like
that we have a zoo house here. You know? That's what they'll think. Why else is class environment important?
like from the people from outside, like probably they'll think we actually have kids in class, and if they see that environment, they'll be like, oh, I don't want my kids in that.
Not this class. I don't need to put him in a cage with other animals. Not gonna happen. Yes?
Other students will think it's okay, so they'll just follow down.
It sends a message to other students that, yo, it's a fair game. It's party time. Call class. It's actually party time. Yes.
Makes it harder to focus and learn fast.
Even the good students who actually want to focus, they can't focus. Because you know what? The motor mouth is sitting next to them. That's why. You guys, what do you think how was the environment of the Darul Arqam? Regarding the companions, it was said when they would sit in the gathering of the Prophet, they were like statues, and sometimes a bird would actually mistake them for actual statues and would come and sit on their head because they were so motionless. And with us, because we live in an age of iPads and iPods and gadgets, if we don't get entertainment every 2 minutes, what starts to happen? Look at you guys. Just think about it. You can't stop moving and flinching and, oh my God, when is the talk going to be over so I can get back to the basketball and the gym? It's amazing. So what's the third rule? You guys are so lost into what I'm saying that you don't even remember the rules. What's the rule again? F it. What's the rule again? Beautify the class environment. Let's do a quick recap. What was the first rule? Taha, go ahead. You forgot. Yes, you're a Hafizah. Good to know. A student. You see, if you heard it from your heart, you won't forget. And he heard it from his heart and he remembered. What was the second rule? Tariq. Lower the wings of humility. I used such a language so you won't forget. You know? I could have just said, be nice to your teacher. And lower your wings of humility. Third, beautifies the class environment. Fourth rule, people. Fourth rule. And you guys, we have plenty of issues with this. Watch this. A student of knowledge is amazing to his fellow classmates. Doesn't call them ugly names. Doesn't call them by their skin color or their nationality. Okay, so here's another thing. Here is a student who doesn't lower his wings of humility. Brother, I heard you make a joke about Abdul Ghani about his Somalian origin. So it's fair game now for me to make those jokes? No, it's not. Because I have a certain relationship with him that you don't. You know, I have to deal with this guy every day through text messages. And I have to, keep up with his emotional swings and everything else. So I can afford to do certain things that you can't. You're students of each other. So a student of knowledge, especially the newer students who come to class. If you're going to be like how in our high schools, the seniors treat the freshmen, where they flush their heads in the toilets and flush. Or you're going to be the mentor, the gentle mentor who's going to pick them up because your teacher picked you up and you want to pay it forward. You guys, how are you treating others? Maybe some students in our class get on your nerves. Maybe some students in our class, in the gym, they play too hard of a defense on you. Maybe they foul you too much. Well, what are you going to do in return? You're going to call him out and go home every time until you humiliate and cross them out? Now, honestly, I'm not trying to make a joke out of it, but really, guys, just try to be nice to each other. Because the Prophet ﷺ, we're from his ummah, we try to live up to his standard. I just may mention a small story and move on to my final point. Is that one day a Jew, not a Muslim, see, not a brother and sister that you and I have, a Jew comes to the Prophet ﷺ. And he says, oh Muhammad, you know that money you owe me? I need my 20 bucks back. I'm sure it was a bigger amount than that. I'm just paraphrasing here to make it a little spicy for you guys. Because you guys have a hard time focusing, right? Muhammad, I need my money back. Where's my dough? So the Prophet ﷺ and Umar, they were walking together. Now Umar is a tough guy. So the Prophet ﷺ and Umar are walking like this, and the Jew comes from behind. He could have just come and gently asked for money. You know what he does? He takes a shawl in the back of the Prophet and yanks it until it leaves marks here on the neck of the Prophet. Leader of humanity walking, and this is how he's being treated by a non-Muslim. If it was you and I, it was going to be a wrestling match right there. Right? Yet the Prophet ﷺ, look at the control he has, self-control he has. Control his emotion. Didn't jump off from his seat. But Umar lost it. You know Umar, he lost it. He started chasing him down the alley with a sword in his hand. And the guy is running for his life. And the Prophet ﷺ was like, Umar, come, stop. stop it. And they called him back. And he says, Umar, go and get the money that he's asking for back. He did loan it to me. And put some extra money on top for the way you treated him. So the Jew was so impressed. He says, O Prophet, O Muhammad, not a Muslim yet. I read in my book, and what's the name of the book of the Jews? The Torah. He said, I read in the Torah that the signs of the final messenger, of his signs, which you meet every single one of them, he said, except there was one sign that I had not tested yet, and that is the sign called Hilm. Hilm is when you have the right to smack somebody, but you hold back and give them another chance. That's called Hilm. Like you screwed up big time, and your parents should ground you for life, and they still hold back. That's Hilm. He said, the final sign, one of the final signs of the messenger was Hilm. And I wanted to test that sign, so I intentionally yanked your shawl to see how you react. And you pass the final test. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah. Became the Muslim on the spot. You guys feel me? So what was that rule we were talking about? Being nice to your brother. I don't care if the student in our class is from Guinea, from Australia North Side. I don't care if the student from our class is from the Saharan desert. You gotta treat everybody equally. You gotta be nice to each other. You gotta be gentle to each other. Final, and inshallah we're done. You guys have been great, by the way, mashallah. You guys have so far been focused. You guys ready to go through the final checkered flags? Here's the final sign. Here's the final sign. A student of knowledge never gets tired from increasing his knowledge. It's never enough. He doesn't think, well, I did memorize the Qur'an, so I think I'm set now. I think I have a reserve ticket to Jannah. So I think I'm good. I mean, I'm the only guy who memorized Qur'an in my family. Jeez Louise, I mean, what more do I need to learn? I'm set, bro. You know, I'm going to be taking 7 people to Jannah with me, and I got everything. I got akhirah set in the bag. Imam Ahmad, the Imam of his time, known as a man. You know, Imam Ahmad, regarding him, it was said that Allah would not have been worshipped on earth had it not been for Imam Ahmad. And who was the second man regarding whom it was said? Abu Bakr. Yes, that's right. Imam Ahmad, towards the end of his life, was one day seen running on the street, running with a pen and a paper in his hand. And somebody who's coming to learn knowledge probably from him, he said, Imam, what are you running after? I should be running after it too. Imam said, well, I heard a man came from the outside of the city, and he knows about a hadith that I don't. So I'm rushing before he leaves to get the hadith from him. And the man probably just fell on the ground out of shock. He's like, Imam, you're the Imam of your time. If anyone needs to seek, if anybody can take a break from knowledge, it's you. You're still running after knowledge? What did he respond? He said, I am going to run after knowledge till I reach my grave. Till I hit my grave. So if you're done memorizing Quran, it's time to move on to a little bit of hadith. It's time to understand Quran. And let me ask you guys this. People who think they have enough knowledge and they've plateaued themselves to a certain level, if you're not increasing in knowledge, what's happening to you?
Decrease.
You're decreasing by default, number 1. Number 2, if you are not going to increase your level of knowledge and you think it's enough, you know what that brings into your heart? The A word, the arrogance. You think, mashallah, you're the big shot, you don't need any more knowledge, and you're like, you know, you're A-okay. But more you increase in knowledge, more you know how little you know. So you guys, just because you're memorizing Quran, we have 2 Hufad in our class, you guys, especially mashallah, you guys are learning Arabic now. You guys, I was telling Talha yesterday, which I'm very excited to announce, that Talha is going to be, inshallah, the first student who is going to memorize the 40 hadith of Imam Nawawi. It's going to be very light, half a page a day, 4 or 5 lines of your Quran. But it's going to be easy. But guess what? He's memorized Quran. He's learning Arabic. I'm sorry, he memorized the Quran. Then he reviewed the entire Quran. Then he's learning Arabic. Then he's learning a hadith. He's the one who's holding the torch for the future students who are going to be hufat from our class. Because perhaps those are the footsteps they will take. So inshallah, if Allah wills and if he's sincere, the reward of all the future students who might follow his example ends up in his record. But you need to be sincere. You can't be doing it because Brother Amir slapped it on my head. And Brother Amir is going to kill me and eat me alive if I don't do it. If that's your intention to keep me from blowing my top, then Allah will say, well, you kept him happy in the world. I ain't going to reward you for 40 hadith of Nawawi. You got your reward in dunya. You didn't get in trouble. Astaghfirullah. What kind of an intention is this? You don't want to get in trouble. How flimsy is that? You can't be that big of a wimp. Seek knowledge for Allah, not for anyone else. So you notice we just came full circle? You guys notice we came full circle? So with that in mind, you guys ready to repeat with them one last time?
Oh, yeah.
3, 2, 1. Number 1, seek knowledge to please Allah and Allah alone. Number 2, lower the wings of humility to your teacher. Number 3,
Beautify the
class environment. Alright, you guys with me so far? Number 4, everybody forgot that part. Be nice. What do you mean be nice?
Be nice. Be amazing.
He doesn't pay me to be nice.
Be nice to your brothers in the class.
Be nice is a weak word. Be amazing to your brothers and sisters in class. And finally, never get tired of amazing knowledge. You guys, if you bring that, I'm telling you guys, if you guys hit those 5 points in your behavior, man, you're gonna be a superstar. That you're gonna walk one day, you're gonna be walking through the hallway, and Brother Sufyan, instead of pointing out as that guy, that annoying shaitan in the form of a human being, instead of pointing you out like that, he'll be like, that's a walking Quran right there. And that's what we want to be said about you. بارك الله لي ولكم في القرآن المجيد ونفعني وإياكم بالآيات والذكر الحكيم.